July 1975, Memphis, Tennessee. A black woman named Minnie Person stands outside a Cadillac dealership, admiring cars she knows she'll never afford. Then Elvis Presley pulls up, sees her looking, and asks one question that will change her life forever. The culture of Cadillacs. If you grew up in the 1950s, 60s, or 70s, you understood what a Cadillac meant. It wasn't just a car, it was a statement. It was proof that you'd made it, that you'd climbed out of poverty, out of struggle, and into the American dream. For Black Americans especially, a Cadillac carried extra weight. In an era when so many doors were closed, when so many opportunities were denied, owning a Cadillac was a way of saying, "I matter, I succeeded, you can't ignore me now." Elvis Presley understood that symbolism better than most white entertainers of his time. He'd grown up dirt poor in Tupelo, Mississippi. He remembered the shame of wearing clothes from charity donations. He remembered his family's car breaking down and having no money to fix it. He remembered what it felt like to want something so badly and know it was out of reach. When Elvis got his first real money from music, one of the first things he did was buy his mother a Cadillac. Pink with white interior. Gladys Presley didn't even have a driver's license, but Elvis didn't care. He wanted her to have it. He wanted her to feel what it was like to own the nicest thing on the block. That impulse, that need to give people the feeling of making it, never left him. And on one particular day in July 1975, that impulse took over completely. The woman on the sidewalk. Schilling Lincoln Mercury Cadillac dealership sat on Union Avenue in Memphis. Big glass windows, rows of shining new cars, that new car smell pumping through the air conditioning. On a hot summer morning, a woman named Minnie Person walked past those windows on her way to work. Minnie was in her late 30s, a cleaning woman who took the bus to jobs across Memphis. She'd worked hard her whole life, raised kids on her own, and never complained. But sometimes, walking past that Cadillac dealership, she'd let herself dream. She'd slow down, look at the cars, imagine what it would feel like to turn the key on one of those beautiful machines. Then she'd shake her head, smile at her own foolishness, and keep walking to the bus stop. On this particular morning, July 29, 1975, Minnie stopped a little longer than usual. There was a gorgeous Cadillac Eldorado in the window. Deep blue, with white leather seats. She stood there, hand pressed against the glass, just looking. She didn't notice the white Cadillac Seville that pulled into the parking lot behind her. She didn't see Elvis Presley step out, wearing sunglasses and a casual shirt, trying to keep a low profile for once. Elvis saw her, though. Saw her standing at that window, looking at that car the way he used to look at things he couldn't afford. Something in her posture, in the way she touched the glass, it hit him. Elvis walked up beside her and said, "That's a beautiful car, isn't it?" Minnie jumped, turned, found herself face to face with Elvis Presley. "Oh my Lord," she said, "you're—" "Which one do you like?" Elvis asked, pointing at the cars. Minnie laughed nervously. "I'm just looking. I can't afford any of these." Elvis smiled. "Humor me. If you could pick any car in that showroom, which one would it be?" "Pick one." Then Elvis does something that makes the salesman think he's joking. Minnie pointed at the blue Eldorado. "That one, but like I said, I'm just dreaming." Elvis took her gently by the arm. "Come with me." He walked her into the dealership. A salesman named Howard Massey looked up, recognized Elvis immediately, and his professional smile went into overdrive. "Mr. Presley, what can we do for you today?" Elvis pointed at Minnie. "This lady would like the blue Eldorado in the window." Howard blinked, looked at Minnie, looked back at Elvis. "I'm sorry?" "The blue one. She wants it. Let's write it up." Howard hesitated. "Mr. Presley, that car is $12,500. "I know what it costs," Elvis said calmly. "Write it up. Put it in her name. I'm paying cash." Minnie Person started crying right there in the showroom. No, I can't accept." Elvis turned to her. "Ma'am, I saw you looking at that car like it meant something to you. Cars meant something to me when I didn't have one. Please, let me do this." According to people who were there that day, Minnie couldn't even speak. She just nodded, tears streaming down her face. Howard Massey, still processing what was happening, started the paperwork. And that's when things got interesting. Because while Howard was writing up the sale, a few of Elvis's friends wandered into the dealership. Guys from his inner circle, guys who'd been with him for years, working security, running errands, keeping him company during the long, lonely nights. Elvis looked at them, looked around the showroom at all the gleaming Cadillacs, and something clicked in his head. "How many cars you got here, Howard?" Elvis asked. "On the lot? Maybe 40 or so." Elvis nodded slowly. Then he pointed at his friend Jerry Schilling. "Jerry, you need a car?" Jerry laughed. "Elvis, I'm fine. Pick one." The buying spree. But what happens next turns a normal Tuesday into absolute chaos. Word spread through the dealership like wildfire. Elvis Presley wasn't just buying one car, he was buying cars for everyone. Friends, employees, people he barely knew. If they were standing in that showroom, Elvis wanted them to have a car. By mid-morning, the dealership looked like a circus. Salesmen scrambled to keep up with paperwork. Elvis walked around the lot like a kid in a candy store, pointing at cars. "That one, that one. Ooh, that gold one's nice. Who wants the gold one?" A secretary from the dealership's office happened to walk through. Elvis stopped her. "You drive a Cadillac?" "No, sir, I drive a—" "Not anymore. Pick one." She started crying. One of the service mechanics came in to ask a manager a question. Elvis spotted him. "You work here?" "Yes, sir, I'm a mechanic." "You deserve a nice car. Go pick one out." The mechanic stood frozen, wrench still in his hand, unable to process what was happening. The bill keeps climbing, and nobody can believe what they're seeing. Howard Massey was sweating through his shirt. He'd worked at this dealership for 15 years and never seen anything like this. The sales tickets kept piling up. 12,000 here, 13,000 there. Elvis wasn't even negotiating. He'd ask the price, nod, and say, "Fine, write it up." By lunchtime, Elvis had purchased 13 Cadillacs. 13. The total came to over $140,000, nearly $1 million in today's money. If you or your parents ever owned a Cadillac from this era, we'd love to hear about it in the comments. What did that car mean to your family? And if you're enjoying these stories about Elvis's incredible generosity, hit that subscribe button. We've got so many more moments like this to share. The aftermath. The story hit the newspapers the next day. Elvis buys 13 Cadillacs in one morning. Photos of Elvis handing over keys. Interviews with stunned recipients who still couldn't believe their luck. Minnie Person told a reporter, "I was on my way to clean houses. Now I'm driving a Cadillac. I keep thinking I'm going to wake up." But not everyone was celebrating. Colonel Tom Parker, Elvis's manager, was furious. He called Elvis that afternoon, voice tight with frustration. "Do you have any idea what you just did? You spent $140,000 in 3 hours." Elvis, according to people who heard the conversation, just laughed. "Yeah, and you should have seen their faces, Colonel." "This is going to be a tax nightmare," Parker fumed. "The IRS is going to—" "Let them come," Elvis said. "I made some people happy today. That's worth more than the money." Parker knew there was no point arguing. This was Elvis being Elvis, impulsive, generous to a fault, operating on feeling rather than logic. You couldn't reason with that. You could only brace for the financial fallout. And there was fallout. The IRS did take notice. Elvis's accountants had to work overtime figuring out the tax implications. Some of the cars were classified as gifts, some as business expenses, some as charitable donations. The paperwork was a mess. But Elvis didn't care about paperwork. He cared about the phone calls he got in the weeks after. Minnie Person called to thank him again, voice shaking with emotion. The mechanic called to say his wife cried when he drove the Cadillac home. The secretary wrote him a letter saying she'd never felt so valued in her life. The pattern. Here's the thing you need to understand. July 1975 wasn't a one-time event. Elvis gave away cars constantly. Cadillacs, Lincolns, whatever caught his eye. He'd be driving, see someone admiring a car, and pull over to make a deal. He'd hear about a struggling family and send them keys to a new vehicle. His accountants estimated he gave away over 100 cars during his lifetime, maybe more. Some were to close friends, sure, but many went to strangers, waitresses, gas station attendants, nurses, people who happened to be in the right place at the right moment when Elvis felt that generous impulse. And decades later, the people who got those cars still can't talk about it without crying. Minnie Person kept her blue Eldorado until she died in 1996. Her family buried her with the keys in her hand. When they sold the car years later, the new owner discovered she'd barely driven it, only 14,000 miles in 21 years. She'd been too afraid something would happen to it. It was too precious. The secretary from the dealership, her name was Linda Thompson, no relation to Elvis's girlfriend of the same name. She kept her Cadillac for 30 years. When she finally sold it in 2005, she cried the whole time. She told the buyer, "Elvis Presley gave me this car. It was the kindest thing anyone ever did for me." What the cars really meant. You could look at Elvis's car giveaways and call them reckless, wasteful, bad financial planning. Colonel Parker certainly did. Accountants shook their heads. Business managers tried to rein him in, but they were missing the point. For Elvis, those cars weren't about the money. They were about dignity, about giving people a feeling he remembered from his own childhood. The feeling of having something nice, something you're proud of, something that makes you hold your head a little higher. He remembered being the poor kid, the one whose family couldn't afford a working car, the one who watched richer kids drive past while he walked. He remembered that shame, that ache of wanting something simple, just reliable transportation, just a little bit of pride, and not being able to have it. So when he saw Minnie Person standing at that window, he didn't see a stranger. He saw his mother, saw himself, saw everyone who'd ever pressed their hand against glass and dreamed of something better. And because he could make that dream real, because he'd been given this wild, improbable success, he felt obligated to share it. People who only knew Elvis from concerts or movies didn't understand this side of him. They saw the jumpsuits, the mansions, the excess. They didn't see the man who stopped at a dealership because a woman was window shopping. They didn't see the late-night drives through Memphis, looking for people who needed help. The Cadillacs weren't just cars. They were proof that someone saw you, that someone thought you mattered, that you weren't invisible. And in 1975 America, especially for a black cleaning woman taking the bus to work, that meant everything. Minnie Person's family still has photos of her with that blue Eldorado. In every picture, she's smiling like she won the lottery. Because to her, she did. If this story touched you, please share it. Share it with anyone who thinks Elvis was just an entertainer. Share it with anyone who needs to remember that generosity doesn't have to make financial sense. It just has to come from the heart. Subscribe for more untold Elvis stories, because the more you learn about this man, the more you realize the music was just the beginning. And if you've ever given something away just to see someone smile, even something small, you understand exactly why Elvis bought 13 Cadillacs before lunch on a Tuesday in July. Thank you for watching. Now go do something kind for someone who'll never see it coming.